Hey everyone, welcome to the 523rd episode of Just Shoot It, a podcast about filmmaking, screenwriting, and directing. This episode is brought to you by patron Muon Udo Putz. Probably said that wrong. I'm Oren Kaplan.
And I'm Matt Enlow. Today we've got Chandler Levack on the show. I'm so excited to talk to her. We talk about the two movies she's got dropping, Roomates, which is on Netflix, and Mile and Kicks, which is out in theaters. And we also spend a decent amount of time talking about her debut feature, I Like Movies, all of which have come out within the last 5 years, but two of them are coming out in the same week. Hot dog. If you are listening day and date, this episode comes out the 16th, so it will be tomorrow.
Tomorrow. And by the way, this is very rare for us, but I've seen both of her movies that are coming out on April 17th. Yeah.
And really I've seen her first two movies. So between the two of us, we have seen all of her movies.
Yeah, and Roommates, the Netflix movie, it stars Sadie Sandler, Adam Sandler's daughter, and it has like Natasha Lyonne and Nick Kroll and a really fun cast. Sarah Sherman, who seems to play the college advisor in like every movie.
Or at least the last two movies we've done, so yeah.
Yeah, she's also in Your Son Uninvited to My Bat Mitzvah as the like weird, quirky rabbi. But it's a really fun movie if you're just sitting on the couch and it's on Netflix. It is rated R though, even though it's a college movie. Do not show it to your 10-year-old. I think there's a lot of swears right in the first opening. So be careful. I watched it maybe a little too loud at my house. But yeah, man, it's really fun to talk to her. She's like one of those people, I think as filmmakers, we really have no clue how to make it. You and I get messages all the time like, hey, how should I start out? What's the next step? And I don't know that we've had a guest on that has had a clearer path, like step by step of like what she's into, what she's doing from working in a blockbuster to making big studio Netflix movie that like every step makes sense.
You know what's funny though, Oren, is that I think this show is part of its mission statement is demystifying all of the speed bumps in between then. And it's easy to look at a filmmaker like Chandler and be like, wow, she has it figured out. But she literally has made two movies about how she doesn't have it figured out. One where she works at a blockbuster and is struggling to like find herself. And then again, Mile and Kicks, this new film, is about that time right after college when you're a young professional, but you're kind of in this second coming of age. And is literally, that one in particular feels very autobiographical. It's a period piece about a young woman who was a music journalist and who knows what she'll do in the future, but probably direct music videos and then features. Like it feels like a very clearly autobiographical.
Yeah. But I think, I feel like I've always had that fear of like, the write what you know, that what I know is this kind of boring life that everyone else is living too, that I'm not a unique individual. But, I think if you're like, oh, I worked at a blockbuster, so I am like, that's like my story. And you're like, yeah, there's thousands of people that worked at a blockbuster.
Yeah.
But she's managed to make it, that's the relatable thing and find the authenticity in it that makes it a good movie.
Yeah, it's pretty great. It's funny. I wanted to bring it up to her in the moment, but didn't have the chance, probably because you were talking. But there is my favorite Letterboxd review for I Like Movies is just something to the effect of like, of course you guys love this movie. Hold on, I want to find it actually. The review goes, this was made specifically for you losers here on Letterboxd. And I think that's true. And it's kind of a compliment.
Yeah. And written by a loser on Letterboxd.
Yeah.
Very,
that's right.
Very self-aware comment, I think.
Yeah.
But she's like the perfect example, the perfect answer to like, how do I get a directing job? And her answer is like, well, be the most perfect person to direct the thing. And the first, 10 times out of the gate, you're either the perfect person because you'll do it for free or because you wrote and created it and produced it and it's about you.
Yeah, you're the only one to do it. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then the, a big $30 million Netflix movie becomes so obvious why you're the one that should direct it. So yeah, I have a feeling she will be making a lot more movies or TV shows. We'll see. I feel like a lot of her stories have legs in that TV way. So yeah, this is really fun. Anything else you want to talk about before we hop in with her?
It's a nice long episode. I will flag that our conversation was so worthwhile. We did it in 2 parts. So if you're watching over on YouTube, that's the wardrobe change of it all. And I don't think sonically is going to be noticeable for people, but we'll find out.
Yeah. I will say, if you ever end up coming on this podcast, please plan on being on here for at least an hour.
For longer than that. Yeah.
Yeah, we only had 20 minutes with Chandler the first time, and we had no idea, and it was quite funny because I thought you were just like really not liking my line of questioning. As you were texting me on the side, like, wrap it up, Kaplan.
Yeah, this wasn't like, hey, you need to pivot or make room for me to pivot. This was like, oh no, or her publicist was like, heads up, guys, we're wrapping out soon.
Well, on occasion, you'll text me like, this is going nowhere. Let's change the subject.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's such a fascinating privilege, I'll say, to like just kind of drop in with a person who is in the middle of having a moment. You know, like to have two movies releasing on the same day is so wild, you know? So we're talking to her at first, you know, in a hotel room in New York, and then over in Toronto. She gets to jet set a little bit and fly all over the place and showcase two movies at once. Incredible. Yeah.
And anyhow, if you are interested in hearing more of this breaking journalism that Matt and I are doing, you can support us by going to patreon.com/distributedpod. Put $1, $2. I think we are dangerously close to not breaking even on a podcast.
Oh, no, that's already happened. We're not breaking.
Oh, we're in the red.
Yeah.
So if you would like to help inch us back towards the black, just because you enjoy podcasts and you realize that the dollar that you gave us, 7 years ago is now worth like 25 cents comparatively, especially in LA, then check out the Patreon. Maybe do $5 a month. I promise you will not notice it. Patreon.com/JustShootItPod. And
without further delay, let's talk to Chandler.
Hey, Chandler. Thank you for coming on the podcast.
Hi. Nice to meet you guys so much. I'm in my bed. I'm just in such a small hotel room in New York. This was like the most comfortable place that I could be. But it actually is good insight into my creative process because I do like to do everything from bed if I can.
Do you write from bed, actually?
Yeah, I'm always like hunched over, like writing like this.
Like on your laptop on the knees?
Yeah.
I for the very beginning of my career, I worked for Comedy Central, and it was in cubicles, like straight up regular like corporate cubicles. And I remember when I quit to go direct, I would write from bed, and I just felt like a prince. I just like the height of luxury to be like, I could be in a cubicle right now. I could be huddled around, a conference call or something, and I'm just blink, 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 blink. So I get it for sure.
Yeah.
Are you Canadian?
I am Canadian. I'm from Toronto.
Okay, cool. We've been cold.
That's true. Yeah. With Chandler, would you know West Side Studios? Do you know those guys?
I don't know them.
They're a production company. A lot of photos. I think that maybe they shared the poster for Mile End Kicks, and I'm trying to remember the context. Did someone else shoot the key art for your movie?
We shot it in LA.
Okay.
It was a great photographer, Maya Fuhr, who's Canadian.
Yes. So Maya is repped at
the
West
Cobra
Side.
Snake.
That's what
I did
it is.
some photos too.
Oh, funny. That's really funny. Well, that's a great segue for people who don't understand that reference. Mile End Kicks is like a period piece, but it takes place in like 2011, give or take. Is that right?
Yeah. Did you just guess that, Matt?
I think that maybe the movie maybe says what year it is in the intro. I could be wrong. I think so, right?
The whole time I was trying to place there's all these like clues, right? Like the notes app on the phone, the font. It's like it is Comic Sans, right? The font. That
I think so.
That's funny.
Which is insane. Yeah, and then like the music, and she's like Joanna Newsom's new album comes out, and which really. I mean, I think if you were a certain age in that time, which I guess was not that long ago, like it was so like relatable and nostalgic and fun to watch. And Alanis, she's writing a book about Alanis Morissette. That was my first concert.
Oh wow,
with Alanis.
Well, I'm curious, kind of as an overarching idea, and stop me if this is off base, but you've got 3 films, right? You've got I Like Movies, you've got Mile End Kicks, and you've got Roommates, and they kind of seem to be representing very specific moments in a person's life, right? Like it's like, okay, high school and then college and then post-college, like early post-college, right? Kind of 3 instances where people manage to kind of come of age, right? Like we used to talk a lot about like second coming of age stories, and it feels like you seem to be gravitating towards that. I'm curious how conscious that was, and and how accurate that is, and how autobiographical all three of these films sort of feel like they are, or how autobiographical you see them to be.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, like, coming of age movies are always my favorite movies, and I think, like, in every genre, you could say like an Alien, that's a coming of age movie for Ripley.
I wanted to name my daughter Ripley, and my wife wouldn't let me, so we settled on Nora.
That's a really cool name. Wow,
it is cool. It is cool. Though I've heard a lot of like Ripley's on the playground actually, and I'll be like,
okay,
is it because of Alien? And the dad will be like, yep. So
Ripley Enlow is pretty awesome.
It's
She'd
not
have to
bad.
be like a textile designer in Bushwick or something.
Sure.
Never too late to have another kid.
Yeah, we'll see. Anyway, sorry, Chandler.
I'm stealing that name. I'm not pregnant, but I will become pregnant so I can name my kid Ripley. I don't know. I think I'm just attracted to that genre. And, when I was a teenager, like working at Blockbuster, those were all the movies that I really like imprinted on, like Ghost World and Almost Famous and Rushmore. And they just like really, really struck a chord in me. And I love teen movies. Like when I was in middle school, I was like obsessively gobbling up like any teen movie that could kind of tell me what my future was going to be like. And, I just consumed so much popular culture as, in middle school and high school. It like made me feel nostalgic for things I never even experienced. Like, I feel like I lived through like Dawson's Creek and felt more emotionally connected to those characters than like anything that happened in my own real life. And so, when I got the opportunity to start making films, I was thinking about the kind of like coming of age movies that I wanted to make. And I was like, I want to make a high school movie where like the movie's just about a person waiting for high school to be over. And like nothing happens to them. It like mostly is about them like waiting in a parking lot for their moms to pick them up. And I kind of wanted to reflect like, I guess, the kind of high school experience that I had, which was sort of like only realizing far too late that like you didn't really connect with anybody. And like now high school is almost over and like you actually are filled with like all this like regret and remorse for like the way that you behaved in high school. And you wish you'd been able to connect with people.
Yeah, that's so funny. I feel like my favorite high school stories are the ones that I saw on like Beverly Hills 90210.
Yeah, they're like so intense. Like when I remember when like Dawson or Pacey and Joey kissed for the first time on Dawson's Creek, like I like couldn't breathe. Like,
That's great. Oh, that's so funny.
And then I think with Mile and Kicks, like my first two features, Mile and Kicks, and I like movies like I wrote, and they're definitely semi-autobiographical and like very kind of attuned to like my own personal experiences. So yeah, I think for me, like those films feel really emotional and personal and almost scary how personal they are. And then with Roommates, that was the first time that I ever directed a movie that I didn't write. It was written by these two great writers, Kira Jane O'Sullivan and Jimmy Falley, who are on SNL as writers there. They created like the Domingo sketch. And then then it became kind of a collaboration with them and me and Adam Sandler, who produced the movie, where we were all kind of like collectively sharing our experiences of like what we remembered from college and different friends that we had and like moments in our life, and then that helped kind of enrich it. But it was the first time I kind of was like, oh, I have to like actually find my way into this. But I do think that the first year of college is it's such a surreal and like horrifying time in your life where like you're not really an adult yet and you're like trying so hard to like present this like new version of yourself, but you've never lived away from home before. You're completely reinventing yourself. You're living in this like completely different place in a completely different context, and like it's a lot of pressure. And I remember seeing so many people in my residence just go like absolutely crazy and have these like complete flame outs or like really difficult relationships with their roommates. And I'm surprised that like, yeah, more movies haven't been made about that experience of like the, intense like roommate relationship and like the complicated nature of like female friendship. So I really, really loved that script and identified with the movie a lot.
Yeah, it is a crazy time. I mean, it's coming on the heels of like 4 years of your teacher saying like, wait till college.
Yeah.
College, this isn't going to fly in college. And you're like, what is? Yeah. And then freshman 15, like you're all of a sudden you're like, I can eat anything I want.
Sure. Yeah, I ate nachos every meal. Literally every meal. Yeah, I was vegetarian, so like there wasn't many options.
Yeah, we did a lot of like location scouting at different colleges, and I'd always go to the cafeteria and just like watch students and see what they would get. And it was always like a mini pizza that they'd put like chicken nuggets on top, and then like ranch dressing, like next to a bowl of cereal, next to like a salad, next to like a sundae. Awesome. I'm like, this is amazing, and I love it.
What's that? Where did you end up shooting? Which college?
We shot in New Jersey. So we shot at Rutgers campus,
cool.
And this really beautiful school called Drury University. That's kind of like a smaller liberal arts college.
Something you can kind of own a little bit more production-wise, more or less.
Yeah, exactly. Because I think Rutgers was like outside of Netflix's like filming zone. So we couldn't shoot there as much as we wanted to. But that one had like the great dorm exterior, and a lot of the movie takes place in a dorm. So it just looked incredible. And there was like there's a beautiful old library that is like a seminary library that's like the most beautiful location in the film that we got to shoot in. And just like we wanted like that kind of classic like archetypical college that's like so stately and beautiful,
like a USC or UCLA.
Sure.
They're like 60% of college movies.
Yeah. Well, and I know the USC and I think maybe UCLA as well, both were kind of designed to look like other colleges so that people would shoot there.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, they say
That's
that
so
on
California.
the tour. Yeah, it's so California. But, Chandler, it makes me think of like, you were talking before about how you have a nostalgia for maybe a childhood you didn't literally experience. And that's kind of how I felt about college, right? Like, I was so excited to go to college and love my college experience. But like, a lot of what you see in TV and movies isn't like a Southern California college. It's like upstate New York, you know what I mean? It's like these small liberal arts schools that have the ivy and these incredible buildings and stuff. And so I wonder, in location scouting, like, were you more interested in aesthetics or reality? Like, how did you decide what good was, quote unquote, relative? Like, what made a good location or a good establishing shot or exterior for you?
I mean, I always just like stuff that has like weird, idiosyncratic character to it. And, Roommates is a Netflix movie, and I guess no shade to Netflix movies, but I always find that they like are weird. The locations are always weird. It's always like people live in houses that kind of look like an Airbnb, and they always have like chalkboard signs outside and like too many like fairy lights in people's rooms, and like nothing looks like lived in and like specific and like based on like,
there's a joke about fairy lights in your movie, right?
Yeah, there is actually.
That's funny. That's really
funny. But there's like not like world building or like character specificity to me, and I think that was for me like the real challenge of directing something that I didn't write for the first time, because like with Mylan Kicks, I wrote that script. I started writing it 10 years ago, and so like I felt like I knew the intonation and meaning of like every comma, and it was almost like I had to like almost relax a bit and be like, okay, trust your collaborators and give them and your actors like a lot of agency and empower them to also come up with their own ideas of what the vision of this could be, so that it can be a collaboration. Like, not everything has to be this like staunch like line in the sand of like what you exactly remember from your life. Like, let it be a movie, instead of a weird, I don't know, like interpersonal art project or something. And then with this movie, I was just like, how do I make this feel really real and authentic to like what the college experience it is, like, how do we make a dorm? I was nervous about doing a movie that like primarily takes place in a dorm room, and how to make that feel like cinematic and interesting as a space, and not make the film feel too like claustrophobic, and have unique blocking in scenes, so you're not just like seeing the same kind of scene over and over again.
I wonder also, like, the literal size of a dorm room is really complicated, right? Like, Oren went to UCLA. I don't know if you've ever been in one of those dorm rooms, Chandler, but you couldn't fit another
like a
person.
Yeah.
Like, there's
two
three
beds.
There's two twin beds and a bunk
and
bed.
a mini fridge.
Yeah. Like, you had two people. That's the height of luxury. My friend, it was three
there was
kids
like maybe
in one room.
Like 4 square feet of like moving space.
Yeah. So like, you're better off shooting that as a set and then flying walls out, but then all of a sudden you're throwing the camera in places where physically you wouldn't be able to see otherwise. How do you deal with just like the aesthetic, right? Like the kind of like this aspirational sort of dream of what college could be relative to the reality of how people experience it.
Yeah. I mean, I worked with such brilliant collaborators, like my production designer, Barry Blake. He has been working with Happy Madison since like Billy Madison. And so he did like The Wedding Singer and, Happy Gilmore and like all of these like very iconic Happy Madison movies. And like, he literally like built hell in Little Nicky. So and maybe hell is a teenage girl's dorm room, but yeah. So it was, I think he really loved the challenge of doing something like more naturalistic, but also cinematic. And he came up with this brilliant idea. We shot it on a soundstage in New Jersey, but then at the beginning of the movie, the dorm is like it's bigger. And then as her relationship with her roommate gets worse and worse and worse, because we built the set smaller and smaller and smaller.
That's
until
great.
At the end, at the height of their tension.
That's noticed when you watch the movie, or is it
it's
like
more
all kind of
felt?
subtle?
Yeah, it's more felt. And then I think with my cinematographer Maria Rushi, who's incredible and shot Shiva Baby and Bottoms, and is just like an extraordinary talent. Yeah, they were also like, oh, maybe we can start to frame things with like, tighter and tighter lenses too. So you kind of just feel like you're getting more like sucked in, as asphyxiated, and it kind of like mimics maybe that experience of college where like when you first get into that dorm room, you're like, oh my God, this is my room. Like the world seems so big. And then as, the litany of like microaggressions pile up, like you just like, I can't even like live in this space, Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder if we can back up for a second, because I think, at least for me personally, I'm really curious how you got these, like how you put together, got Mile and Kicks made, and then how that, if that indeed did parlay into Roommates, or if you kind of got Roommates
or even
on a parallel path from I Like Movies.
I think maybe even taking it one step even further back, actually, right? Because, correct me if I'm wrong, you started as a journalist like your character in Mile and Kicks. Is that right? Or
yeah,
no?
I basically, saw Cameron Crowe's Almost Famous when I was 15, like imprinted on the movie so hard that I was like, how do I
that'll ruin your life.
Live in this movie. Okay, I'm going to become the main character. And I like, by the time I was 18, I was like writing professionally for, this all weekly in Toronto called Now Magazine.
Oh, that's so good though. Because not only did you like say, hey, I want this life, but like literally I'll start as a teenager. Like he did.
Yeah.
Not just like, oh, I should be a journalist someday. Yeah. That's wild. That's great. That's great. Sorry.
And I interned at Spin in like the summer of 2007 and like moved to New York when I was 20. And then I just completely dropped out of university and was like working full time as like a professional in air quotes. I was sometimes paid in CDs, a rock writer. And worked at this alt weekly in Toronto when I was 22 as like a staff writer there. So that shaped me like in so many ways, like both great and horrible. But I got to interview, so many of my heroes, both in film and music, like had so many profound experiences that really shaped me, I think, as, artist or whatever. But I think there was this like itch that I was always trying to scratch where I was like, I want to be a filmmaker, but I'm just like repressing this so hard. And I think journalism and arts criticism felt like a safe way to like kind of be adjacent to the thing that I really wanted to do, but like could never admit. And then I think at a certain point, like it just, the like little voice in my head just kept getting like louder and louder and louder. And then I got let go from my job and I had like a few credits left to get my degree. And so I went back to school.
When you got let go from your job, was it like music criticism was kind of slowly eroding as you were getting into it? Was it a sign of the times?
I don't know. I think I was there kind of for like the death knell, I'd say. Like when I started, rock music criticism, there would be like 7 pages of like CD reviews, and like it was kind of the era of like Pitchfork and, Stereogum, and where like, you could be like a tiny band and like really break out through, critics and stuff. And, people still went to shows and bought CDs. And now I feel like that whole industry has like collapsed and like you don't need music critics anymore to tell you if something's good. Like you can get the album on Spotify and listen to it and it like nothing has the same kind of like value as it used to.
Yeah. But I guess what I'm asking is, did you feel like could you tell that criticism was shifting to the point where it was no longer be a viable career? Or was that too prescient?
I don't know. I mean, I think for me, like the writers that I always admired, like I really wanted to be like a great cultural critic, like, Greil Marcus or Susan Sontag or Pauline Kael. Like those were like the writers that I really admired. And so I guess I did start to see it like, budgets getting slashed and articles getting shorter and people no longer being interested in, investigative features and like the pivot to video and stuff like that.
Sure. Yeah, I guess I'm projecting a little bit because I think at the same time I wanted to make music videos, and I remember getting one, and the budget was $5,000 for everything, and it took me a month to make. Do you know what I mean? And I split it with somebody else. So like I remember just being like, the party's over. Okay. All right. What else do I do?
Well, I mean, that's how I started as a director. I started in music videos too. So I made a bunch of music videos for this Toronto punk band called Pup, who are great.
I love
and
Pup.
our first video,
I didn't know that. That's great. I love
our first video, Reservoir. I co-directed them with them.
Oh, I know that video with what's his face, the Stranger Things kid, right?
Oh yeah, Guilt Trip. Yeah.
Oh, that's Guilt Trip.
I did that one.
Pardon me. That's great. That video is awesome.
Yeah. And we shot that for $3,000 in Vancouver, all in, and it was just this like incredible education for me because I hadn't ever directed anything, and I was co-directing it with my boyfriend at the time, and we did like everything ourselves. We're like literally like driving through the middle of the woods, like location scouting. I think we found a guy that like owns like some weird like forestry plants, and we asked him if he could like shoot on his location, and paid him like $100. It was like a handshake deal, and like I remember we had this like van that was the van that the band drives in. It was really incredible, like insane, punk rock van. And we used it to like pick up all of our gear and stuff. And then we were driving on the Sea to Sky Highway, and the door like slid open, and Jeremy almost like fell out, and I like caught him.
You're like, we should put that in the video, I think.
Yeah. I mean, everything was just like the gnarliest way you could do anything, like just posting, notices for casting on like Mandy.com. But that's how Finn Wolfhard like auditioned, and he was so incredible. Like even then when he was like 8 years old, like such a cool, amazing actor.
So the video is coming back to me now. So for listeners who aren't familiar, it's like, the formation of this like kind of gnarly punk band, like playing loud music in the woods, right? But like, there's like, correct me if I'm wrong, like a fire, right? Like,
well, it's like the fake origin story of how Pup became a band,
right? But
we kind of wanted to do this like mythology of like how they became all childhood friends, and so slowly but surely it kind of has this like Stand By Me over the edge aesthetic, and then you start with like two kids that are friends that are like getting bullied at school, and then at the end of it, the bully comes back to like fight them, but then this cop shows up, and then the kid accidentally shoots a cop, and they burn his body, and then they go on the run, and then that's how they became a band.
Which is great, but also like you have guns, you have fire, you have gore.
Yes.
I mean, there's a lot of production value.
A lot of production value.
$3,000.
Yeah, for sure. So are you just calling
you're not
favors?
paying for these locations, right?
Right.
Pardon me?
Yeah.
You're not paying for locations.
Well, I wouldn't say it was a union shoot, but we had an amazing crew that like managed to put it together on like a very DIY level. Like our producer Dan Code was so incredible. So it was just a lot of like, okay, we need to make like this kind of like squatting, punk rock, like home for the kids in the woods. Okay, well, Jeremy's dad, who's like a carpenter, is gonna like we're gonna be like nailing plywood to like a shack that we built ourselves, 6 a.m. in the rain. Like everything was like the hardest possible way that you could do something that now, having just made like a $30 million Netflix movie, I'm like, oh, but there's like was such a purity to that. And I actually like kind of miss that style of filmmaking, like the very granular, like DIY level. And I certainly like applied all those lessons to like my first feature I Like Movies. Like, our set for that film was like literally found in an abandoned Blockbuster in Northern Ontario. And then we just like, the owner like looked the other way, and we just built a cube truck with like all of the old shelving and computers and TVs that were like in the store.
You're kind of doing them a favor, right? Like, like what else?
I don't know.
To
me, I felt like I'd won the lottery. Like I was like, you don't understand how precious this is to me. But there was a moment where I like had like this saw and I was like sawing through like old wires, like not knowing if I was going to get electrocuted or not to like steal the computers or whatever. But I mean, like, I feel like that's filmmaking is like my spirituality. Like it's the closest thing I have, I think, to like when those things happen, like you manifest like all of the props that you need, or like some incredible actor, signs on to your project, or you like, it seems impossible to find the location you want, and then miraculously you scout it. Like it does feel the closest to me, like believing in God.
Yeah.
That's great. Can we ask you, can you tell us the budget of I Like Movies, your first movie?
It was about $225,000 Canadian.
Oh, wow. Which is
and it was entirely
$80 US.
Yeah, $60. Yeah, it was entirely with grants from Telefilm, which and the Canada Arts Council. So Telefilm has this program called Talent to Watch, which is like a micro budget grant that you can get for your first feature. And in my opinion, it's a lot of the greatest, like most interesting movies in Canada are being made with this grant.
And how many years ago was that?
When I made the film?
Yeah.
We made it at the height of the pandemic in 2021.
I Like Movies?
As if it can have been harder.
Sure.
Yeah. So in 5 years, you went from, if I'm to believe your character from Mile End Kicks, someone who's unemployed, owes some old roommates a lot of rent money, gets a book deal canceled, struggling to survive, and has to... Oh, sorry.
That's a fictional movie. I'm not saying that anything...
You said it was too personal, maybe.
I know, but
that has to beg their parents.
I don't want to blow up my spot,
But going from that to... I guess what's interesting to me is just your success is kind of like meteoric, right? In the like post-COVID, you've gone from nothing to this $30 million Netflix movie, right?
I guess that's true. I've never literally ever thought about this before in my entire life.
It's pretty quick. Yeah.
I know, and I'm not even a Nepo baby. I don't know anybody at all. I promise.
You made Mile End Kicks, which we talked a little bit about, which I also very much enjoyed that movie. And it was so autobiographical, like you mentioned. And then somehow you got like a $30 million Netflix movie as your next film with like a really fun cast. Can you just tell us a little bit about how you went from film 2, which was, it's not a small film, Mile End Kicks. I think it's probably pretty big on it in terms of like an indie film level.
And a great festival premiere and recognizable faces and names and a great soundtrack. And like certainly like
the soundtrack.
A more expensive movie than I Like Movies, right?
Yeah.
But not, I'm going to guess, not a $30 million Netflix movie sort of budget.
No.
It seems like you 10x'd every time. Like the next movie's going to be $300 million.
Yeah, there you go.
The whole time you were saying, like, how did this happen? I just wanted to go, like, in my head, I was like, I just want to I want to say, enter Sandman. It's like, I don't know. I was like trying to build a joke that would be like Sandman about is that a Metallica song? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Hey, you're the music journalist, sure. Okay? You only do grunge.
Yeah, you're just aging me, Chandler.
Late 90s grunge.
I'm like, of course.
I think only Adam Sandler is crazy enough to watch I Like Movies, a film that doesn't even have lights, and the only extras are my parents, who had to lie to a doctor and say they had COVID and then do a COVID test and get negative results in order to be an extra in the film. Like,
wait, are you serious about no lights, or you mean like minimal lights?
Like basically no lights. Like we couldn't afford to have lights. Like we have practicals. We had a diffusion tent that like cut the harshness of like the fluorescence in the video store. But yeah, I mean, it was very DIY movie. Like we filmed it during the pandemic. So the COVID costs like took out, like
forgot about that
budget there.
Like the COs are rolling up in Rolls Royces. That's a COVID compliance
let my friend's dog out. But yeah, I mean, I think that, I certainly, I did not plan or strategize any of this stuff. It all just like randomly happened to me. And I Like Movies was written because I couldn't get Mile End Kicks made. And that film took, 10 years to happen. So it's a very strange career of just like kind of, there's no strategy involved. I think when my agents signed me, they were just like, they waited 4 years and were just really happy after 4 years that they could actually get me.
The funny thing about that is like, I feel like people sign with agents and then like, nothing happens for 4 years. And then you shoot them an email and they're like, oh, well, you're not we don't rep you anymore.
Yeah. We're like, oh shoot, are you still on our IMDb?
Yeah. Can you remove us from your contact?
I think I might have a bar mitzvah video you could do for my.
Yeah,
It
exactly.
is funny, like it probably is like 5 years is like when they unsign you. Yeah, I mean, after my first movie, I signed with like, agent and manager and everything. And about 5 years later, they're like, yeah, we think we've seen what you can do,
You get to the point where you're just like, I don't want to email them because then they'll realize that I think I'm still signed to them and they'll drop me.
And I've made them no money.
Manager who was lovely, like during the pandemic, she was like, I'm Chandler, I'm sorry, we have to part ways because I want to become an arborist.
Oh, that is the worst. That's like the third time I've heard that excuse. It's probably because they think you can't track them down.
Yeah. You don't need a social media presence as an arborist.
Yeah, and I was like, I didn't even know you liked trees that much.
Like, I don't.
You don't, but compared to filmmakers,
yeah,
at least they hug you back.
Chandler, do you need to let your dog out? Is that what you just said?
No, I did.
You did. Okay, well done.
It's her
okay.
friend's dog. Okay, come on. The details
so
matter.
I don't want to talk too much about I Like Movies because we're here to talk about your two new movies. But
that's right.
I do wonder if you have any insight into how or why the movie popped off and launched you into these other two, right? Because I literally just got emailed today. We get pitched all the time for micro budget movies, and from friends, from people we don't know, from listeners to the show. And it's really, really hard because I want to champion every indie movie ever, right? And also our job is to kind of find ways to like, Oren doesn't, but you want to like find ways to like give a listener a new perspective on something we haven't talked about yet. And especially my heart goes out to these micro budget filmmakers who are kind of just always like, hey, we made $50,000 look like $2 million. And we could talk about DIY distribution and kind of all this stuff that is pretty well trodden territory. What do you think made I Like Movies pop? Do you have any insight besides just making a good movie, which we all aim to do,
And the title is pretty
35% is the title for sure.
Sure.
I think you go to a film festival and you look at all the things and you're like, well, I like movies. That sounds like a safe bet,
I relate.
I think we got a lot from just the title alone. I think that, it's very like a movie about someone who loves movies. So people are going to identify with it if they're at a film festival. Because, I think we are all Lawrence in some ways. Kind of like, I think we all relate to that little like scared, pretentious teenager in all of us that's renting like 10 free rentals a week at Blockbuster. And, I remember just like when I worked at Blockbuster in the suburbs of, Ontario, like just being like, oh, I see you're interested in Spider-Man 2, but may I also recommend Babette's Feast? And
now looking back, you're like, oh, Spider-Man 2 is really good though.
Yeah.
Matt worked at a video store too.
He could do Babette's Feast, but the director of Babette's Feast could never do.
Sure. Yeah. That's the full circle of working in movies. I do think you realize that everyone's looking for something different in movies, and I think working at a video store taught me like, oh, right, I can recommend my favorite movie, but that's probably not going to be their favorite movie. So how can you discern what's going to click for them, basically?
Yeah, completely. And I think anytime anyone would like take my suggestion and come back and be like, oh, I did watch, Dog Day Afternoon, and you're right.
Mm-hmm.
It rocks.
Sure.
I feel like I just completely won the lottery. Like I was just so excited. And I was just so desperate to talk about like the things that I was interested in. So I was just looking for like peers or anyone that would just like, give me the time of day.
I feel like the puzzle pieces of your life, they fit too well together. like giving your opinion, like movies, then become a person whose job it is to give your opinion on music and then show that music. I mean, it's just too convenient. This feels like it's written by ChatGPT. Where did you premiere again? I Like Movies?
It was also at TIFF.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that probably doesn't hurt.
Yes. I'm a Toronto film criticism Nepo baby in that regard.
Having worked in Canada a little bit, I remember working with a DP who had a movie that was going to premiere at TIFF soon. And he kind of told me that like Canadian filmmakers kind of take that festival for granted a little bit or don't think of it as in such high esteem. I'm like, no, that's like one of the very best festivals.
It's like top 3 North American festivals.
Yeah, it's
Maybe
incredible.
Top 2, I don't know.
And if you're a filmmaker working in Toronto, you're just like, well, yeah, that's the one in our backyard. It was kind of the vibe that he was saying. And it kind of echoes the joke in I Like Movies about not wanting to be another Canadian filmmaker, right?
Yeah.
Did you feel that sentiment at all? Or were you just like, no, here we go. Like, my parents actually come to this festival. Let's do it,
I mean, I think for me, like my relationship to TIFF is so strong, like, and I've experienced it from so many different levels because, I started going there as like a university student. Like my first screening was a print of Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore that was introduced by Ellen Bernstein, and I couldn't believe that was like in my own, backyard, like 10 minutes away from where my university class was. And then I got to cover the festival as a journalist. And the first time that I went, I had a pass and I was like, what? I can just see like 5 movies for free a day. And I got to interview like Pedro Almodovar, like the year that Voltaire was there with Penelope Cruz. And like, granted, it was like a round table where like you get to ask like one question. Still to be in the presence of them was like electrifying for me.
Yeah.
I remember seeing like a P&I screening and I sat next to Roger Ebert. Like,
oh my gosh.
And I was so shocked. And then he had like a talk box thing and he was like, it's me. And it was unbelievable.
Still got it. That's so good. Yeah.
And then I worked at TIFF as a staff writer for 2 years, interviewing filmmakers. And then I had a short there and then feature. So I feel like I think I said in my intro to Smiling Kicks this year when it was the opening night film, I was like, I've experienced this from so many different institutional levels. Like I could write like the wire of TIFF. Like I know, what's incredible about that festival, what's like complicated about, working there, being a filmmaker there, like everything. So, but I still think, from a programming level and just what it represents as a cinephile, it is incredible. But I think Canadian movies often get like the short shrift there because, just people don't take Canadian film seriously in general. Like it still has this kind of strange stigma to it. Canadians don't see Canadian films. They don't know about them, even though their taxpayer dollars go towards funding those films. And they very rarely get distribution outside of Canada. And so it's like you're putting all your like heart and soul into making these independent movies and then they just completely flatline. And they'll make like a successful Canadian movie will make $200,000 at the box office. Like that's considered like a runaway like success. And so it's very strange.
The math just doesn't work out to.
Yeah. So there's never any like recruitment of, budgets or anything. I mean, it's interesting because I guess because it is a granting system and, there's not as much pressure to do that. And you kind of can in Canada and a little bit make like art for art's sake and have a sustainable career that way. But like, I don't know. I really admire the filmmakers who've continued to make films in Canada and like work within that system. But it's really difficult.
Somehow you figured it out because you made this movie, it premiered at TIFF, and Adam Sandler saw it. Do you have any idea how that happened?
I think he has like 15 agents at WME, and one of his agents is my agent. So I think that's how they probably like forced him to watch it.
So was that your agent when you made I Like Movies?
I think they signed me like after I Like Movies was at TIFF.
Oh, okay.
So there's a little bit of that honeymoon period of like, oh, we just signed this new person. We're going to send you to everyone. And if you get a bite, then good to go. And if not, sometimes we email you 4 years later, right? But you got the bite, right? And also,
I have amazing agents, so we've kind of stayed in contact, and they've been supportive and like helped me get introduce me to actors for Smiling Kicks, and they've just been nothing but awesome. But I did get sent a lot of breakdancing movies. I was like,
I would do a breakdancing movie.
Yeah, sounds fun. Yeah.
And I'd be like, this, like, Kenny Ortega needs to do this. Or,
Sure. Just like, I did that a bunch already.
Yeah. So, and I'm guessing that if it went through the agents, probably they showed it to someone at Happy Madison that's like, hey, this movie's got like a vibe to it that maybe you guys would be into. There's kind of some coming of age. Yeah.
Maybe not even strategically, because I just am obsessed with him. That movie is kind of a love letter to Adam Sandler as well. There's a lot of Adam Sandler content in the film. Like they go see Punch Drunk Love. They're watching SNL and they're watching Adam Sandler do the Hanukkah song.
Oh, man.
I've
not seen the movie, but now this puzzle is fitting again too well.
It's like I manifested it kind of. There's like a literal scene where like, he's getting fired from the video store. And he's like, but I need my discount for Punch Drunk Love. And she's like, well, you should have thought of your precious Adam Sandler before. So it's like, really is.
Not bad. Not bad.
I remember talking to Adam about it. He's like, not only did I not sue you, I hired you.
I mean, it is crazy that I think what's so lovely about this is that, you're just like 5 minutes ago talking about how pretentious you were maybe as like a movie recommender, but then like your movie that you make about movies, talks about Adam Sandler movies, which, might be like the widest appeal type of movies ever. I mean, I know Punch Drunk Love is not
sure, but
typical, Adam Sandler movie. But
Chandler too likes movies, right?
Yeah. So then
I love Adam Sandler movies, and it was such a privilege to be part of like the Happy Madison canon. Like I can't believe it. It's so cool.
Yeah. If you get a dog, you should name him Adam Chandler.
It was funny when he met me. He's like, if you married Adam, you'd be Chandler Sandler. And I'm like,
oh yeah.
And I was like Julia Gulia in The Wedding.
Sure. Yeah, you're like, he's married. It's like, Marcy Carsey.
He's married, and his wife is so lovely and wonderful. And I don't want to marry. I'm sorry. I don't.
And he has a daughter that starred in your movie. So was that all coming together while you were making Mile End Kicks?
It was happening while I was editing the movie. So we were like kind of in the fine cut stage and getting all of these really difficult notes to understand from from different, financing partners in the film. And I was like having kind of a mental breakdown because they wanted to like completely recut the movie. And like, they just didn't kind of tonally get what it was about. And, it was really frustrating for me. And I was like, I think that like we are done and like I want to move forward. And at the time we were like shortlisted for Cannes and stuff. So I was like, if this happens, we didn't get in, but if this happens, like I need to be able to like do the score and the sound mix and the color correct and all this stuff.
Yeah.
Like, you're kind of like holding the movie a little bit hostage. And then
were there any changes?
Sorry, magical call from my agents that was like, Adam Sandler saw your film and loved it, and he wants to work with you. And I was like, what the hell is happening?
You're like, I knew it. I am good at this. And then you just forward that email.
I do think directing is a lot of like worst day ever followed by best day ever. And vice
exactly.
Yeah.
And so then he just wanted to like get going. Like they wanted to shoot the movie in June and it was, late March. And so I like immediately like had to move to New Jersey, and then I would just be like flying back from Newark to Toronto like every weekend trying to
did you have to pitch on it, or they just gave you the movie?
I did pitch on it, but I don't know. I think Adam is just like, he's so powerful, and I think his relationship is so strong that like literally any other person would be like, look at I Like Movies and go like, nope, I think we can do better.
or maybe in a couple movies, yeah.
But I don't know. He just had this like strong sense that I could do it. And it's almost like he saw this potential in me that I didn't even know that I knew I had, And so, yeah, it was just this crazy thing where like within 2 days, I was like flying to Beverly Hills to like pitch the movie to Netflix with him in the room. And like, I just made a lookbook in like 3 days, and we kind of like.
Incredible.
Yeah. I mean, it was really just like, I didn't even really get nervous because I didn't have any time to do that. Like I felt like I'd already just like entered this different reality. So I didn't feel like any sense of imposter syndrome because I'm like, well, this isn't my real life. So
Had you pitched in similar circumstances without Adam Sandler in the room?
Yeah, I guess I've pitched on movies before.
Yeah. But the difference, so you could highlight the difference between like literally how many executives were in the room for the Adam Sandler pitch versus.
I think there was like 5 or 6. Yeah, I was like the head of comedy, the head of their content. The executive that I was going to work really closely with, his agent.
All of the people are there. Yeah.
It is. In hindsight, it seems like kind of such a perfect type of person to have direct this movie because Adam Sandler, he kind of made a string of very broad, like kind of exactly what you would expect type of movies that look good and had amazing casts and all those things. But, we're kind of like part of this Adam Sandler style of filmmaking. And then, so I'm sure that from a Netflix point of view, like, okay, these guys know how to make big, bright.
You don't need to tell Adam Sandler how to make an Adam Sandler movie, right?
But what, but my guess, and I'm sure I could be wrong, I'm just making this up on the spot, but I think You Are So Not Invited to My Bat Mitzvah was one of these like Adam Sandler movies that had that Adam Sandler production value, but had this like very relatable coming of age to a new like a Gen Z generation, which maybe his level people have kind of lost that a little.
Well, I mean, I think one thing that was so surprising to me is that like he wants to be like heavily involved in like every detail. Like he is really like the auteur behind all of his films, and like he is like giving thoughts about like costume and production design and the locations and all the music. And like I've had conversations with him where about like 2 frames like of a shot, and whether or not it's better or not. Like he's really emotionally invested in these movies, and they're not like these kind of effortless hangout films where it's like an excuse to go to Hawaii with Kevin James. Like he is up, at 4 a.m, like thinking about the film, wanting it to be better, thinking about what's the funniest, most interesting way to tell the story. Like he just cares like with all his heart and soul, and like his love language is collaboration. Like his whole life has just been about comedy and making things and film and art, and like he just loves and like lives to work, and he's like the hardest working person I've ever worked with. And like on this film he was doing 2 movies at the same time for both his daughters that were shooting at the exact same time in New Jersey with 2 separate films, and then about to go on like cross country comedy tour. He had just finished Jake Kelly and was like on the promotional campaign for that, like launching the movie at Venice, and also developing like 3 other scripts. Like he just is like, his stamina is insane, but he also just cares about everything immensely. And so it really taught me a lot about collaboration and just the ways that you can most effectively kind of make art with people. And yeah,
I love that. I think we're probably going to ask a similar question, Oren, so we'll see. I think that's so fascinating. And it makes me think of just a few minutes ago when we were talking about the notes you were getting from a different film, right? On Mile and Kicks, you were getting different notes. What do you think was the difference in terms of like how you perceived those notes? And just talk to us about the difference between receiving notes on a movie that you wrote and then receiving notes on the movie that's, kind of part of this larger apparatus.
I mean, I think they really trust Adam's vision. And so they didn't really have a lot of notes because I think they just know that he is the auteur. So, in a similar way, I think I had a very charmed, like protected studio experience because he kind of is the studio in some ways. And Netflix, like he cares what Netflix thinks and wants, their thoughts and opinions and stuff. But if he feels strongly that that's not the kind of film that he wants to make, then he doesn't have to, then he's not going to do something that doesn't feel right to him.
Well, but what about notes from Adam, right? Or did you just kind of always feel more or less aligned on, his point of view?
Yeah, I think the movie like has a really interesting tone and it's like, it feels like me, but it also feels like Adam. And it's kind of like, it's like Lady Bird meets Hubie Halloween or something.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. Is because I thought it's interesting to hear about the 2 frames. Like Adam will be like, "Oh, we should cut 2 frames earlier," and you're like, "We should cut 2 frames later." Because I watched the movie last night, and I thought it was like really funny, and in a very different way than Mile End Kicks is funny. I think Mile End Kicks has a little bit of that Scott Pilgrim ghost world, like washes over you, like you're transported into a world and the humor kind of comes from the authenticity of it and the, kind of the insanity of the things you do and the personalities, that are interacting with each other. This is just like, you'll just have a cut to something really funny. Like you found this actress, the one that plays Celeste. I've never heard of her before.
Oh, Chloe East. Yeah.
She's like so funny. Like annoyingly, it should be illegal, like how beautiful she is, but she just like, every time you cut to her, she's also kind of like the villain of the movie in a weird way.
Yeah.
And I just, it just felt very different in the sense of comedy. I'm wondering if you could just talk a little bit about like how you kind of got, how you get all these laughs, like, and how intentional that was or not.
Yeah. I mean, it was written by these 2 wonderful screenwriters, Kira Jane O'Sullivan and Jimmy Fowley, who are on SNL as writers. They did the Domingo sketch, and they come from the Groundlings and improv, and they're both really formidable performers and creators in their own right. So I think their sensibility and comic timing and just like instincts about what the film should be were very present. And then Adam has his own sensibility and kind of rhythm and like the way that he wants to approach a scene. And then I think we also just kind of like workshop the movie a lot. Like we did test screenings, and we would film the audience on like an infrared camera and just watch like their reactions and kind of try to like almost gamify like the movie of like, okay, they're not laughing here. Like the scene where Devin walks in on Celeste having sex in her bed, like the first time we did it, I was like, this should be one of like a really hysterical moment in the film, and the audience like wasn't reacting, and then it was kind of like, oh, they don't understand what's going on. Like we need like a weirdly explicit shot so that like set things up,
like spell it out a little bit more. Yeah,
like it was very interesting to me kind of to go through this process and be like, oh, like jokes that I wasn't even sure if they were going to get a laugh or not. And then sometimes they would be like surprisingly extremely funny, and he'd be like, oh, well, we should keep repeating that like a few times, like a whole runner. And I was like, won't that be annoying? And he's like, no, that's what you do. If like a joke gets a laugh, like you do it like over and over again. And I was like, oh, interesting. Like that's like kind of like the SNL way of like comedy. And I think there are lots of surprising kind of like discoveries that we found just from kind of like almost testing it and trying things out and restructuring scenes and writing new ending and all this stuff. It was really, he would never kind of like settle for this is just okay. Like he wanted it to be the best it could possibly be.
I know we only have a few minutes left, so I just want to ask if you could just give us a 3-minute masterclass on how to shoot parties. Because there's like
a lot of
great parties.
Yeah.
There's the spring break, Panama City party. There's like the frat party. And then even Mile End Kicks has a lot of parties. Like
filled with parties. Yeah.
Just give us like your step-by-step. I'm doing a party scene. How do you start figuring out how to shoot it?
Oh my God. Crazy. Well, I think you work with like 2 genius cinematographers first and foremost, like Jeremy
2
Cox,
DPs.
who shot Mile End Kicks and just shot A24's Backrooms, is like a genius. Maria Rucci, who shot Roommates and shot Shiva Baby and Bottoms, like they're both just so excellent and very meticulous about planning things. We both shot, I think, all our party scenes on Steadicam, which I think for me helps have this kind of like kinetic energy. You can sort of weave through rooms and people. And I think for the first shot in Roommates, which I'm really proud of, it's like kind of a following shot. It's sort of like my version of like the opening tracking shot in Boogie Nights or like
Goodfellas.
And I was so like nerdily excited to do the shot. And I was like, there were a lot of shots in Roommates where like I just kind of, I didn't even know, I'd never like executed anything that like grand before, but like because we had the resources and the time to do it, like we kind of could. So it's this kind of like following shot through a party where it's like an ultimate frisbee party. So it's all connected by people throwing frisbees to each other as it kind of weaves through the room. And then
you're like, this party's too cool. What can we do to just make it a little dweebier?
I mean, I think that's what's good about the movie is that you sell that. Like the cast too. You have that guy from
Martin Hurley.
Yeah, from Please Don't Destroy.
He's a genius.
Yeah.
He's an absolute genius.
But in terms of like the extras and making like everyone look like they're actually partying, is there some?
Yeah, I mean that's tricky because I think extras and just effective blocking of extras and having extras do something that feels real but not too much so it like steals focus. And I find extras in movies are always like agreeing with each other. Like they're always like, yes, that's so. Anytime you look at an extra, they're always couple having dinner in a restaurant. They're always like, oh my God, yeah. And they like drink their wine. And you don't, and I think you want to just kind of create an atmosphere that feels like the scene that you're trying to convey, So for like these Montreal loft parties, like that's so specific. It's like people that are so intimidatingly cool. And then college parties, it's like you want people who really feel like they're having a good time and connected and stuff. Because a lot of times too, you just have like a thumb track because you can't play real music in the room. So people are just kind of hearing like, and then it's like, go crazy, you're having the best time. And like,
have you done that before, Matt? I've never done a thump track.
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah.
And does it?
I did an EDM
the audio?
documentary once upon a time.
Oh.
No, it's fine. It's fine. The thing that I find really
we'd always like
hard.
Blast music kind of beforehand so that people at least had like the memory of like the song and kind of the vibe in their mind and like roll on that and then sort of transition over to like what we had to shoot.
Bring it down. Yeah. You always like that thing of like needing to talk over the music when there's no music there. That's always the hardest thing. for sure.
That's the thing I would most want to impart, is that I think a lot of times, because it's like that, there's no extra sound of extras, there's no music playing, people speak really softly, and like if you're in the middle of a loud party, you're not being like, that's so great that we're together. You're like, that's so great,
Yeah.
So I think it's like that's always challenging. Yeah, effective blocking, where I always like having kind of like little windows of space, and I always like looking at like paintings as kind of like a reference for that stuff. Like there's this, I went to Chicago and I went to like the Museum of Modern Art, and like Nicole Eisman had this whole exhibit called like Another Green World, and she has this painting called Another Green World, and I looked at it for like probably an hour and a half, and I tried, and it's just incredible. It's like a beautiful painting of people at a party, and there's all these little details. Like the more you look, there's like somebody who's like asleep on the couch covered in like the coats that people threw on them. There's like two people making out in the corner. There's like a person watching someone else from across the room. There's a person entering the party, and like the host is like looks like pretty upset that they're there. Like, and the more you look at this painting, just like the more stories you see. And like, I think people forget what an effective tool like production design and like blocking of extras can be in like that kind of immersive world building, because there's like a million details anytime you kind of go into a packed space, and everyone at the party is in their own, movie from their perspective too. So I think if you can tell like mini stories. And then I remember talking once to this production designer who I wasn't able to hire, but they said this really cool thing about how with production design, it's cool to tell stories from the night before, too.
I love that. That's great.
Yeah. And that really was so fundamental and interesting to me too, about like how you can, how production design isn't just what is happening in the scene right then, but it's like what happened like 3 weeks ago or 2 days ago, especially when you're doing like a frat house or something.
Yeah.
Right.
Boy,
the pizza boxes.
Yeah, I love that so much. It makes me think of like when people talk about doing period films, like the student film version of a period film is like everyone bought everything in 1956. And like, no, that's not true, right? Like you don't buy everything new and make it all contemporary to the era. It's like you've got to have 20 years of period stuff leading up to the year.
Back then, people kept stuff. Longer
Yeah,
too.
sure. Yeah.
I know.
Well, don't get me started on all the old iPhones that you had and how you sourced those. That's a conversation for another day.
Yeah. I know we're going to lose you in a few minutes. So I think we're going to, in our intro, we'll tell people how they can watch the movies. Obviously, Roommates is on Netflix, probably when this comes out. Mile End Kicks is, you have distribution, right?
Yeah, it's playing theatrically across the States and Canada. And it opens on April 17th through this really exciting new company called Sumerian Pictures.
Crazy. Almost the same time, right? And Roommates is April 19th?
No, they're both the same day.
That's why it's so hard to book Chandler, Oren. She's doing double press. She's Adam Sandler.
Let's just do one thing that's just specific to our podcast real quick, which is at the end, we just do something we're really into. We call it unpaid endorsements. Do you have just 2 minutes to do that with us?
Sure.
Unpaid endorsements.
So my unpaid endorsement, it's a little wishy-washy, but thinking about our conversation and films that we imprinted on, as you said, right? Or just movies that we deeply love and have become part of our filmmaking identity. I rewatched Akira over the weekend. My sister-in-law, who loves animation, had never seen it. And boy, I really love that movie. And so much of what it's doing from a camera placement perspective is stuff that I endeavor to do. I think the scope is so massive. And because it's animated, they can put the camera wherever they want. But like, it's just a masterpiece. But so I'm endorsing, if you haven't seen Akira, go ahead and watch it again, or go ahead and watch it, or, revisit it. But really what I'm getting at is like, there's probably a movie you haven't watched in 10 years that you deeply love. And I think this is a reminder to just go back, treat yourself to something that feels, like a little bit of a memory that will maybe rekindle something in you. That's my endorsement. Chandler, hopefully you have something more concrete than watching old movies.
Well, I'm going to give a shout out to my friend Grace Glowicki, who made this film called Dead Lover that she acted, wrote, produced and stars in. And it's a really, really crazy movie that she filmed in Canada with the same grant that I used, a Talent Watch grant. And it's just this like, it's sort of like her take on Frankenstein. she plays like a 19th century gravedigger who really wants to have sex, but like she smells too bad of dead corpses.
I was going to say there's a lot. They say stinky. They call her stinky in all of the press materials. And I was like, okay, stinky. All right. Yeah.
And she meets this like really wonderful kind of like lordly, like kind of Byronic poet. And they have this sort of love affair. And then he dies and she figures out how to like resurrect his corpse so that she can continue to have a lover. And it's unbelievably amazing, completely bizarre, wonderfully funny, so brilliant, great cast of only 4 people that are playing multiple roles. And it's just like a tour de force. And I watched in LA recently and they had these scratch and sniff cards. So every time you watch it, you can scratch and there's like a different smell that's like connected to the movie. And it was just
Smell-o-vision, right? Yeah.
So fun and wonderful. And, you know, I think her and her husband / collaborator, Ben Petrie, like, they're just 2 incredible Canadian filmmakers. Everything they've made together from Tito. Ben made this movie last year that starred Grace and her called The Heirloom, that is just also just a wonderful, wonderful movie about, you know, a couple that's struggling and they adopt a dog and how that changes their relationship. So simple, but so assured. And they just inspire me so much. Like I've always wanted to have that kind of like Gina Rowlands, like John Cassavetes kind of relationship where you're like making art with your partner and they just have such a beautiful collaboration and really, really inspire me. So go see Dead Lover and watch The Heirloom and watch Tito, Grace's first feature, and watch her friend Adam, Ben's short film that stars Grace, and just, you know, revel in their mastery.
Cool. Awesome. That's a really good one.
Love it. Kat, what you got?
So there's this podcast. I assume it's pretty big. I didn't really know it, but it's called The Big Picture. And they had
yeah, of course.
And this guy on to talk about directing named Steven Spielberg. And you should check it out. There was a few takeaways that I thought were really interesting. First of all, Schindler's List and Saving Private Ryan, no shot list, no storyboards, nothing. He said on Ready Player One.
Saving Private Ryan, they didn't have a shot list?
That's what he said. And he shoots at, he said those movies were shot more or less in continuity. So they're like, okay, what's the next scene? And he would wake up in the morning and figure it out, you know?
That's cool.
So I thought that was interesting. He said like the big VFX movies, everything is storyboard.
Yeah.
But the movies where it's like more people and places,
I've heard people say that more and more that it's kind of freeing to not have a shot list. And
oh yeah,
there's been a couple scenes where
love it.
I tried that approach, not because I should
make the final cut.
Not because my shot list was no longer relevant for the time that we had to do this.
Sure.
But it becomes kind of a fun challenge. Like it's sort of exciting to be like, how do I collapse these like shots 2 or 3 or 4? No,
in about 45 minutes before the sun goes down, basically.
Yeah. I mean, not good for the old blood pressure, but yeah.
Sure.
I mean, that's how they made like Rosemary's Baby and stuff. You know, they'd rehearse in the first half of the day, and then and Tim Burton too would be like come onto a set and be like, where's the most interesting place to put the camera? And then
I mean, I would love to work that way. I think that is so cool, and I've heard more and more people kind of say that that's their approach. It seems very European. You go and it's almost like being in a British company or something. And you rehearse with your actors and then you shoot in the afternoon and then you leave at 5. And
I wonder how much of that just boils down to like VFX, right? But then also like other stakeholders, right? To your point of like, oh, financiers have notes. It's like, well, sure. Yeah. You know, like shot lists can be another version of oversight for people who have,
sure.
And
resources too. We can only build a tiny part of the set. You know, where are you going to point the camera?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think that like, I always find the shot list generally is just kind of for me and the DP and the AD usually is a tool. Like I don't find generally that people are looking at my shot list and being like, you know, this is crazy or like, we don't like planning on covering this scene. That usually comes later.
Oren and I work in commercials, so
yes. Then yes,
like,
I have relevant.
Yeah, you're like, okay, well, which had advantages too, I guess, but you know.
The one other thing that Spielberg said that I thought was kind of heartwarming is he was asked like what he does when he's not directing, like if he has any hobbies, and he said, well, directing is actually like, I think of it as what's in my second position. My first position is like focusing on, he has 7 kids, he has 2 of them are adopted, and he has 6 grandkids, I think. And he said he tried to go on Instagram. He installed it on his phone for 2 weeks, and he's like, just hours of my life disappeared. So I I don't do social media, but in order to stay, contemporary and know what's going on in the world and what people care about, like I have to hang out with my kids because they are on social media. And so I thought that, he's a guy that's so relevant. He'll watch, he obviously votes for the Academy Awards. He said he'll watch every single short doc, every single thing. And he's like very up to date on movies. But anyway, it was fun to see what he prioritizes.
Wow. I got to meet him like really briefly on my last day at the lot when we were doing the sound mix for Roommates. And it was such
that you were a director?
It was such a crazy moment because I was holding like a giant box of, I think I was holding like a burrito.
Yeah.
You're like, hello, Mr.
Fuller. In LA.
I was going to eat my lunch.
Yeah.
And then I literally saw him in the distance smoking a cigar. It was like such a favorite moment.
Oh, interesting.
I didn't know.
And then I was like, and he was alone. And I was like, I have to talk to him. Like, God doesn't just like present as Steven Spielberg in the wild and you don't say anything. So I went over to him and I introduced myself and I said I was making a movie on the lot and that I was a writer director. And he's like, well, what's your first movie called? I'm like, it's called I Like Movies. And I was like, and actually like our lead character, like a lot of our costume design was based on like photos of you on set directing Jaws. And that's the reason he wears the cowboy hat. And he's like, well, I don't wear them anymore. And he looked awesome. He had like the coolest outfit I've ever seen on. He had this like little like neckerchief, like this green neckerchief that he knotted like by his neck. And I bought one like the next day and I've been wearing it.
That's great. Yeah, I would absolutely do that for sure.
But I always try to dress like Steven Spielberg on set because I think he has the coolest director style. And he always wears his own merch.
That's what I do, and Matt doesn't.
I wore like an I Like Movies t-shirt on set, and I remember Natasha Lyonne coming up to me and going, "Big dick move, big dick."
Sounds like something she'd say.
You're like, yeah, I guess so.
Okay, that should be the end of the podcast.
Yeah, sure. And out. Black.
Well, if you guys have spoken to Steven Spielberg and would like to tell us what you said to him, please email us at justshootapod@gmail.com or find us on social media at justshootapod. I'm on Instagram at O Kaplan.
And I'm at Mr. Matt Enlow across all social media. This episode was edited by Kevin Oyang. Thanks, Kevin. Our social media is done by Lily Bouvier. Thanks, Lily. And produced by Tyler Schmidt. Thanks, Tyler. And you're listening to music provided by the Free Music Archive and the artist, Jahzzar. Thanks, Alan.
Bye.
Bye.